Hi, welcome to the show. My guest today is Malcolm Keithley. He is a filmmaker and producer from right here in our area, and he's here to talk about his latest project. So thanks for joining me today, Malcolm. I appreciate you being here.
Sure, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Lisa.
You and I go way back to probably, I would say, 8mm tape days.
Yes, we do. Yes.
I brought 20 years worth of 8mm tapes to you. And at the time, we only transferred them to DVD, right? We weren't even transferring them to thumb drives back then.
That's right. It may have gone to VHS at some point.
Yeah.
And, to DVD and then on to the thumb drives.
So now, so you've seen all types of media over the years. When you started in filmmaking and storytelling, what was the main way that you saved things, recorded things, shared things? What was the technology you were using?
Yeah, it changed so vastly over the years, but we started the first commercial video production company in the Valley, and our tape choice was a kind of an entry level to the professional grade. We were 3/4 inch, and then the top of the line was Betacam, and so that was the sources that we worked with at the time. But primarily we were 3/4 inch, and when we had the budget, then of course we would go to Betacam SP. That was the flavor of the year, so to speak.
And how many generations has it changed by now, you think, since then?
Once it went digital, it's hard to keep up with.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about, instead of just high quality this, that, or the other, we're talking about 4K, 6K, and 8K video. It's just amazing.
I'm watching the World Series right now. Go Astros. Yeah. And I love it when they switch to a 4K shot just for a moment. They'll do it just of the team or the pitcher, or they just do it for just a moment. And it makes you see how, well, it's just so beautiful. The contrast is so, it's even a baseball game, or especially a baseball game, it's just beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing that we can actually work with that kind of data. And also to think that my new iPhone 13 is actually what I'm filming the documentary with.
You've been telling me that for a long time. When I first started doing the Don't Wait Project tours, Malcolm, you're my go-to guy for all my questions that I need answered over the many years now. And you would say, Lisa, don't stress about it. Just use your iPad. Lisa, don't stress about it. Just make sure you have good sound. Lisa, don't stress about it. And it's really true. I mean, some really beautiful short films and award-winning films, full-length features have been shot on an iPhone. It's really incredible.
There's no reason to shy away from it now. The new cinematic mode on the iPhone is just absolutely terrific. And it has kind of come full circle for me, because I've been saying that about the iPhones and people making actual distributable films on the iPhone. And so I do my first interview for the documentary this coming Wednesday in Skycomish, and all I'll be carrying with me is an iPhone, a separate lavalier mic, and a little halo light.
Right.
So pretty much all of that fits in just a tiny little a bag or a suitcase. It's very small, whereas before we would have literally a van full or a pickup full of gear, and this will give us better quality.
Well, it makes you last longer in the industry because you're not hauling all that stuff around, right? I mean, it's a lot to haul around. When I did my first tour, I filmed it all myself for the Don't Wait Project. And I just did the Northwestern states, and I had a Canon 70D, and but simple, yet like you described. I had a mic attached to it, and a very simple setup on my little tripod. And I made a joke once because I saw a picture on set of Mike Rose show, Returning the Favor, I think is the one I saw. And he has a crew of like 7 people with light and sound and all of the things, which is great too. But here I was with just my camera and my tripod, and that was pretty much it. But it worked. It was fun. It worked.
Yeah.
Well, when we come back, I want to talk about your newest project. And I'd imagine that it's got to be pretty cool that, because you know how to tell a story cinematically with film, whenever there's a story worth telling, then you know how to go about it. But there's a lot of things that people don't know about what it takes to get something made, all the way back to, I have this idea, to now the poster that's behind you and the story we're going to talk about. So when we come back, I want to just talk about how you as a filmmaker operate from beginning to end, from the first idea to bringing it to fruition. And really, in today's day, like you're saying, with the technology we hold in our hand, everyone can be a storyteller.
Yeah, exactly.
Post-production's another story, but we'll get to that too. So we're talking with Malcolm Keithley. We'll be back in just a moment. We're back talking with my friend, Malcolm Keithley. Malcolm, we were talking about just when you have an idea for something and how that idea can often translate to film. And for someone who's been doing this a long time, now you understand the convenience of modern technology to just use your cell phone. But explain for us, if you will, that process of having an idea that could be put to film and then seeing that through.
Mm-hmm.
It starts with the idea, right? You're a storyteller.
It does. It starts with the idea, and the idea about the Wellington disaster, which is America's worst avalanche disaster, and also it was at the time it was the Great Northern's worst disaster in terms of lives lost, and it happened in 1910 on March 1st at Stevens Pass, and so it was in our backyard. It's a story that's been around for a long time. And I was always fascinated by it. And then, of course, the fact that you can go on site with the Iron Goat Trail and actually visit where the disaster took place is an amazing thing to be able to see that. And it's documented well by the Forest Service. It's an interpretive trail. And so it's very fascinating to go and be on site of America's worst avalanche disaster, and to realize the heroics that went into the attempts to save the survivors. And of course, 96 or more people did perish in the avalanche. And then you had all of the heroics of people coming to help the injured, to recover the bodies, and then to take the bodies out, and then to get the lines running again. It was a mammoth undertaking, and people stood up and did things they didn't know they could do. They became nurses and doctors, for instance, just with the limited knowledge that they might have, but they saved a lot of lives that way. And so we tell that story. And
so when you first became aware of this story, was it, and then you had visited the location and saw that with the offering that they have there, memorial, but also real good, details of the history of it. The story had not been told in the way that you're now telling it. So right away you're thinking, this is a story that needs to be told.
I was thinking it was a story that needs to be told on film.
Right.
And I attempted to get it started several times over the years, but it was far too expensive because I didn't want to just do a documentary with talking heads and old photographs. And I wanted to recreate, if I could, the town where the disaster happened, but it was just too expensive. But then as time went on, the ability to recreate environments with the free tools, as it turns out, we're working with Epic Games and their Unreal Engine as the engine that creates the environment. And so we have recreated the town of Wellington, and we're just
Can you
coming.
explain that to people who aren't familiar with Epic or what that means, using the engine, just in
Sure.
my terms that I'll understand?
So Epic is a game company, one of the largest, if not the largest in the world. And if you have teenagers or you know of people that are into gaming, they're probably playing an Epic game. And Epic, they make their revenue on games. And so what they want to do is give people the ability and the tools to make the games and distribute through Epic. And that's how the revenue is created. And so all these tools and all of the education is free to those that want to take advantage of it. It's an amazing thing. But we're building it with the free tools that's provided by Epic. It's called the Unreal Engine. And I have artists in the UK that have created the environment and put in the models that we had created, the models being the town structures, the steam engines, the passenger cars, the executive cars, the mail cars, and the rotary snowplows and so on that were part of this story. Well, we're just now at the point where the environment has been built, and we have structured the camera moves that we're going to put into use. The camera moves, we have virtual cameras, and so we can move the cameras anywhere we want to, and have multiple cameras, which we do, and we can change it from day to night. We can change it from snow to rain. We can put in thunder and lightning, and all of that's very realistic. And so now we are creating those camera moves that go along with the script and tell the story. And most of this is focused on the end of February, right before the avalanche occurred, and all of the things that happened in that day and a half span, right before the avalanche crashes down. And
Everything that led up to it.
Right.
And when you see that now, when you can just push a button, day, night, sunshine, rain, it must open your eyes to other things that you can create now that you're understanding and gaining knowledge of the use of this technology.
Well, one thing that's really exciting to me is the virtual reality. We can take the models that we've created for Wellington and put those into a viewer on the phone, Android or Apple. And when people are on site at Wellington, they can hold their phone up and see what it was like right in front of them, what it was like in 1910. We did a segment with Discovery Channel Expedition X, where they brought their crew and their talent out to Wellington and to Skycomish to talk about our documentary. And so they will be showing what we've created for Wellington. And potentially, we're also having created the actual avalanche that came down. They may or may not use that, depending on time constraints and so on and so forth.
And you are working with your partner, Kevin Weiderstrom, right?
Yes.
And so your role is producer, his role is also producer?
He's co-producer. He's my main historian and the go-to person for everything about the history. He's a walking encyclopedia about the Wellington disaster and the Wellington site. So that
you two already knew each other and then ended up having a conversation happening upon this topic.
Well, we were introduced because of our mutual interest by a common friend who also happens to be the grandson of a survivor of the Wellington disaster.
Oh,
and so
wow.
That's the tie in there.
The connection. Wow.
Yeah.
And what does the grandson feel about this recreation and the family just having this history shared in this way?
He's excited about it. His grandfather didn't talk about the disaster a whole lot. And so Dan came upon it kind of later on. So, but he was able to ask his grandfather about details of it. He was an engineer on one of the steam trains that collapsed or that was sent down the ravine in the Ty River by the avalanche. And he had, as this rumored, this was 1910. And as a survivor, they took him to Seattle, and he wound up with a steel plate in his skull, but survived and lived a long life afterwards.
Wow, that's incredible. And I think that when I think about people who can visit and see for themselves what it was, let's take a break. When we come back, tell us about what is there, what people see now when they go. It's pretty amazing, and you cover a good deal of it on your website, and we'll get more into that as well. We're back. I'm talking with Malcolm Keithley. He has produced a film with his producing partner, Kevin Weiderstrom. The film is called Avalanche, the 1910 Great Northern Railway Disaster. We're going to watch a clip right now of the film and come back and talk more with Malcolm.
In the late winter of 1910, a relentless blizzard trapped two great northern railway trains bound from Spokane to Seattle in the rugged Cascade Mountains. 6 days of frantic efforts to reach the passengers and crews failed. Early in the morning on March 1st, an avalanche 1/2 mile wide and 15 feet deep crashed down from the mountainside during a thunderstorm. It swept the trains off the tracks, killing 96 people. This documentary recounts America's worst avalanche disaster.
We've just watched a rough draft trailer of the film you're producing. What is it that you want people to know and understand most about the film, even from that 1-minute clip?
Well, I think it portrays, I hope, a sense of drama about the time and authenticity about the telling of the story. In the trailer itself, which is rough, and that was produced primarily as a trailer to accompany a grant application to Unreal Engine, the Epic game company, for what they call their Epic Mega Grant. And they have put aside millions of dollars to help producers put together material made with the Unreal Engine to show what they would like to do. And this could include documentaries, regular dramatic films, or games. So anybody that is making what is called an environment, a 3D recreation of a fantasy, it wouldn't be a recreation then, but a creation of a fantasy environment or world. Or in my case, what I've done is have recreated the scene at Stevens Pass as it looked in 1910, very authentically. It took us a long time to get there because trying to be as authentic as we possibly could with the known historic resources that we have. And there's a lot of material about Wellington because it was well documented after the disaster. We have more than 200 historic photographs to draw from, for instance. There's a lot of gaps that we don't know about, but I think from what we know and what has been told and what we can see from illustrations and from photographs, we're very authentic. And we use the LiDAR imaging of the actual site at Cascade Pass with Google imagery to recreate the environment. And so we laid down everything on this mesh that was created in 3D that showed the terrain. And then we added rocks and dirt and trees and running water and so on and so forth to recreate the environment. And then we added, of course, snow as it was in 1910. But we can strip away all of that snow, and then that could become part of an epic game. And so we're leaning towards that too. If we're successful with the mega grant, then that would put us in line of producing with Epic. It's in partnership to create a game based on the idea of getting trains from Spokane to Seattle to Puget Sound in all these adverse weather conditions. We wouldn't emphasize the avalanche, of course.
Right, obviously. Well, so all of that, so you're applying for the funding for the grant, you've had other ways of funding. It's an ongoing, it's an ongoing effort, I'm sure. And one of the ways that people watching can help fund the project is by purchasing the poster that's been created. You can go to the website, we're showing the poster here. The website is GN as in Great Northern avalanche.com. So gnavalanche.com. And people can go there to purchase the poster. And it's amazing to look at. I was looking at the poster on the website, and even that creation is really something, right? It's really something.
It was painted by J. Craig Thorpe, who is a well-known landscape and railroad artist. And so it's a collector's item for people that collect railroad memorabilia. Yeah, he's an artist that lives over in Bellevue area, and we were fortunate enough to have him take an interest in the project, and so he created the movie poster for us.
Well, it's beautiful. Let's take we only have 2 minutes left, a little less than 2 minutes. Can you tell people what they'd see if they went to the site now, where they can learn more about the history of the avalanche, but also just that entire area?
Yeah, it's a great place to take your family or anybody, because you can access it by car going up to the top of Stevens Pass. Just as you start down over on the west side, there's a little turnoff and a very tiny sign that says Wellington, I believe it says. But you drive down this dirt and paved road quite a ways, and it takes you to the bottom of Stevens Pass, and the portal, the west portal of the old, what's called a 3-mile tunnel, was no longer used, of course, since they built the 8-mile tunnel to take its place. But you can go down to the portal, the west portal, and then view as part of the Iron Goat Trail. There's an interpretive trail that's maintained by the Forest Service. They've done an excellent job with explanatory signage and that type of thing. And so you can go all the way into the snow sheds that replaced the wooden snow sheds that collapsed during the avalanche.
Well, it's incredible. I've never visited it, but I will now that you've shared all this with me. If people would like more information, all of the history of not only this project, but of the railway avalanche as well, you can go to the website gnavalanche.com. Thank you so much for being here, Malcolm. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Good luck with your grant.
Thank you very much.